This is a story of a man who had everything, and when he became desperate, he gave his freedom for power. Soon that power took his love, took his happiness, took his hope. His emptiness turned to loneliness. Loneliness turned to anger. Anger turned to revenge. After he had his revenge, he had nothing. So he ended everything. Death would not claim him, as he found himself a new place to make something. Now he will do anything to keep everything he loves, and nothing will stop him.
I'm hungry.
Okay, what do you want?
We go hunting.
You know that there's like 10 restaurants down the street. We don't need to live like cavemen.
Boy! We go hunting.
Okay, I'll get my bow.
God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok is the revival duology of the God of War franchise that reforms both the gameplay of the franchise and the character of Kratos. After soaking in the blood of his enemies on Mount Olympus, he washed the blood clean to start a new life in the realm of Midgard with a new family. When his second wife dies, he vows to set his son Atreus on a path that will be far from the path that Kratos walked, while teaching Atreus how to survive for when Kratos will no longer be there. The relationship between Atreus and Kratos is the main driving force for these games, as Atreus learns valuable skills and lessons from his father to prepare himself for the journey that they will have to take. I'll be covering this journey by showing the similarities and individuality of both games in 3 segments, as these games complement each other in such an effective and engaging way that makes them feel inseparable. There will also be various callbacks to the Greek saga, so it's recommended that you watch my first video on God of War to be up to speed on everything. So get your axe, get your bow, your talking severed head, and let's make our own destiny. Also, massive spoilers ahead, like I'm gonna probably spoil everything.
Stop! There's one right there. Clear your mind and focus.
Oh, shit.
Alright, try again. Just clear your mind.
I know, shut up, I got it. You know what, screw this!
There are consequences of firing unauthorized firearms!
Hey, what do you know, Dad? I bet you've never been hunting once in your life!
Watch your tone, boy.
You know what? Screw this!
The biggest difference from the original God of War games is the switched perspective from fixed camera angles to the behind-the-shoulder look as if it was a third-person shooter. In fact, one of the mechanics is aiming to throw a weapon at objects and enemies. Apart from throwing, there's a lot of swinging, stabbing, and dismembering, as the fast-paced hack-and-slash combat is a new spin that I never thought would work this well. If you told me a decade ago that God of War would be given a Gears of War camera for its gameplay, I would have facepalmed at how terrible that idea sounded. But Santa Monica pulled it off gracefully by blending melee and ranged combat to create a smooth protein shake of Nordic manliness. What the f does that even mean? The lock-on and alert arrows are what help make the melee combat function with the cameras behind your back at all times. Lock-on wasn't very common in past hack and slashes, but it feels so much more convenient with its inclusion, and here it makes switching between melee and ranged attacks flow smoothly and elegantly. The alert arrows are necessary for an over-the-shoulder camera in an action game, kinda like in a stealth game when it shows how aware an enemy is to your presence, or a shooter when it has that circle to highlight what direction the enemy shot you. In fact, Santa Monica was working on a new sci-fi game that was probably going to have third-person shooter combat, but that game was cancelled, so they most likely incorporated elements into the development for God of War. Wow, that's kind of a shame. I would have liked to see how that turned out. Well, instead, God of War happened, and now Kratos is here throwing his Leviathan axe at enemies and other such objects. That's right, throwing the axe can be used for puzzle solving throughout the game. like freezing gears to keep gates open, and there are also these totem and bell puzzles that require a good eye and quick reflexes to solve. Throwing the axe is also a combat method to freeze and stun enemies. Now, you're probably thinking, but if he doesn't have an axe, how does he fight back? What the f do you think he uses? That's right, Kratos is a motherfucking man. Have you forgotten? Just because he has a kid, he hasn't got fucking soft. Kratos also uses this retractable shield not only for time defense counters, but he combos it with his fists to bash heads in Captain America style. The rage meter also comes back in full force as your fists light on fire to lay an invincible smackdown on every enemy that stands in Kratos' way. I am so glad to see Spartan Rage back as it was intended, unlike that awful shit they had in Ascension. Ragnarok also has different rage abilities, with Fury being the classic, Valor which recovers a chunk of health, and Wrath that puts all rage into one attack for a big burst of damage. This variety feels fresh and all, but I always came back to Fury because I felt like it got the most use out of it, but smarter players could have more strategic applications for these abilities. It also wouldn't be God of War without acquiring 1 or 2 additional weapons along the way. Kratos tried to hide the past in his basement, but like John Matrix, he comes out swinging with a classic. I was giddy as a Spartan or Viking at war when I was swinging these bad boys around for the first time in a long time. You can't make a God of War game without the Blades of Chaos, despite their controversial past. The blades can be thrown like the axe, but they're connected to chains, so they can be used like grappling hooks, or have a burst of fire run along the chains, which can be also used for solving puzzles and finding collectibles. These are the faster, hotter alternatives to the axe, and it shows contrast between the new school and the old school. Ragnarok adds a third weapon to Kratos' arsenal, which is pulled deep from his Spartan roots, the Draupnir Spear. The spear was created from a ring that would endlessly duplicate itself, and this duplication is used as a bitchin' mechanic by having the duplicated tips explode into the enemies you stuck them in. It's also used to stick in holes that can be used as poles to jump across large gaps. I love this throwback weapon, with a red scarf attached to give it the retro Greek look. The versatility of these weapons is increased through the runic attacks you can equip on each weapon to clear enemies in quick succession. I especially love this ice laser beam that just cuts all these motherfuckers down. Speaking of equipment, there's an RPG-like equipment system where you can equip different armors, weapon attachments, shields in Ragnarok, and other things that make Kratos stronger with a level up gauge that levels up through equipment and collectibles. You can also buy new equipment and upgrade the old equipment through shops run by dwarves who can teleport. Wow, what dedicated customer service. Despite leveling up through equipment, Monster Hunter style, you still get XP for killing monsters and completing quests, in which there are a ton of side quests that have their own unique events. It's the main reason I want to 100% both of these games. While you keep getting sidetracked by collectibles, you can use the acquired XP for the skill tree to unlock new moves, and upgrade runic attacks to make them more powerful. My ice laser can cut down even more motherfuckers now. I've been talking about just Kratos this whole time, as he is not alone in these cold lands. He now has a son named Atreus, and he has a weapon of his own, as he uses a bow to inflict additional damage on enemies, and can summon elemental creatures to inflict even more damage. He also has his own equipment and skill tree where you can make him even more helpful to add to your already absurdly high body count. Atreus is fully playable at certain sections in Ragnarok, in which he is more reliant on range combat than melee. His rage attack is where he turns into a giant wolf and bites the heads off of enemies. Wow, pretty fucking metal. I like this mix-up that Ragnarok gives to show a different perspective on the third-person combat crafted for this game. When Kratos and Atreus are separate from each other in Ragnarok, they're given guest companions that have their own super attacks. Later in Ragnarok, Freya will be a full companion with her own equipment and skill tree, as she utilizes a melee and ranged moveset. I would have liked to play as her for maybe a short section of the game, but maybe we can get that in a sequel. There is no DLC coming for this game, so it's probably going to be a long wait. With this new blend of third-person action, RPG style upgrading, and Metroidvania / collectathon type exploring, this is one of the best reinvigorating of a franchise that they pulled off so gracefully. One major gripe I do have with 2018 specifically is that while some of the bosses are really fun to fight, most of them are just supersized standard enemies with a big health bar being recycled as main bosses with too few differences between each one. This problem was rectified in Ragnarok, where the variety and quality of main bosses shows that there's always room for improvement. Another complaint I have is the overly cinematic structure that is presented in both games. I'm getting kinda tired of the high budget, overly cinematic games that Sony has been pumping out these last 3 generations, and at times these games just feel a bit too cinematic with long sections of walking, boat riding, and dog sledding. But while I do enjoy the story that they provide, I just want to play the game rather than watch a movie. I guess we can judge how the movie parts are at least.
You know, brother, I think you're a little too obsessed with these games. And Skylar's a grown man. He can't be your son. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to know what raising a son was like in the Nordic times.
It's 2023. Most of the people that worship the Norse gods are long dead anyway. You should live in the present.
Yeah, I guess it is easier to live today than it was back then. You didn't have to hunt for your own food or grow your own crops or worry about your whole family and village getting murdered and pillaged. Yeah, I guess it all should just be left in a video game.
And look, I can't be a severed head that you keep with you for dialogue, exposition, and life advice. That's what cell phones are for. So please, don't try to chop my head off again. There is no magic or technology that will keep my severed head alive.
You keep your head this day.
The most movie-like quality that is the most impressive to me is the single-take cinematography throughout the games. Every cutscene feels like you are a bystander with a camera, documenting the most unnatural bonding of a father and son, who are both gods being hunted by other gods. The entire first game has the camera stay on or around Kratos until the credits roll. It shows the perspective of a once broken man finding meaning by shaping his son to be self-reliable and emotionally tempered, and the camera never pulls away. We always stick with these two at all times. Or at least most of the time. There's a part in 2018 where Atreus is ill and Kratos must journey into Helheim to get a troll's heart. Since the camera is still on Kratos, it gives him time to show how his past will always haunt him and that he needs to confront it to truly move on. Having a one-shot style of presenting a story is challenging, but God of War takes that challenge head on, especially when Ragnarok switches perspectives from Kratos to Atreus. When you have to play as Atreus, the camera will pull focus from Kratos and center it square on Atreus. Sometimes Atreus is a whole realm away from Kratos, so the cinematic director will pull the smoothest transitions I've ever seen. Holy fuck, these are so good. These perspective switches are worthy of an Oscar. But this is video games, so...
The Oscars!
The camera work wouldn't be as good if there wasn't anything beautiful to look at. So the game provides realistic environments of such amazing detail. The graphics and art direction for these games are some of Santa Monica's greatest works, as it interprets Norse mythology through a dark, realistic, and historical lens to bring one of the most unique and, for the most part, accurate portrayals of Norse mythology. Kratos is over 1,000 years old at this point in the lore, so he's given an older appearance to show that despite being God, he has aged a bit, Kratos adopts the formal wear of the Northlands as he acquires different armors throughout the game that each have their own unique design and give Kratos a Viking look despite being a Spartan. Who the hell am I to judge? He probably can pull off any look because he's always dressed to kill. The various NPCs based on classic Norse figures are unique enough to stand out from every other portrayal that they have been given in many different mediums, with Thor and Odin looking both human and omnipotent at the same time. Even Atreus fits in looking like a young god in training. You know, he might even be a little mischievous. While Norse gods are really cool, the monsters are made to be some of the coolest things to brutally slaughter. Iconic Norse creatures such as Jormungand, Fenrir, Nidhogg, and many more make quite the spectacle when they make their presence known. Jormungand's roar could blow out a subwoofer. The sounds in general in this game are so well done as it immerses you into every environment that you come across. The swing of the axe, the cracks of the chain, the arrows flying by. It all sounds so natural. Hey, and look, a bear's coming this way. As in Bear, I mean Bear McCreary, a well-established composer bringing us an epic soundtrack that competes well against the Greek saga scores. This new theme given to Kratos is both ominous and commanding, accompanied by the new actor that portrays him, Christopher Judge. While Terrence C. Carlson gave the voice performances in the Greek games that seemed irreplaceable, the new direction that was given to the character needed a more calm and wiser voice. Judge also did the motion capture to fully bring Kratos to life. So while it is unfortunate to see Carson go, it was necessary to evolve Kratos for a new generation of hardware and players. Other actors like Sonny Soljic as Atreus and Daniel Bisutti as Freya give it their all to make this experience more immersive, like it was a multi-million-dollar budget film. Instead, it's a multi-million-dollar budget game, and at least I want my games with a huge budget if they're trying to be as good as movies. These performances wouldn't be as good as they are if the writing didn't also deliver on its part.
How you feeling, buddy?
Listen, Sky, I'm sorry. I know I have a problem, and I just want to share my experiences with these games, but none of my friends have played it, you know? Like, I just want to have deep, meaningful conversations. That's the problem I have.
Listen, Thane, there's plenty of places and people out there on the internet that you can share your thoughts with. I know it doesn't compare to a one-on-one conversation, but it's still better than nothing.
Yeah, you're right. I just want to express my love and opinions for this game, and I guess the best way to do that is on the internet, but I just gotta figure out how to.
Well, I will tell you that you're probably going to procrastinate a lot on this.
You cut me real deep, Skylar. You cut me real deep just now. The most simple explanation I can give to the story of the God of War Norse saga is that it's a story about a man and his boy. In the Greek saga, Kratos was a violent and vengeful Spartan warrior who lost his family and his humanity to get revenge on the gods that wronged him. In the end, he attempted to kill himself to rid his life of the terrible deeds that he committed, but he survived and found himself in a new land with a new wife who birthed a new son, and new gods to harass him because Odin doesn't like immigrant gods. Kratos' main arc for 2018 was his attempt to bury the horrible deeds of his past to start a new life with a new family. He wants to keep all this from Atreus, but the Norse gods want Kratos and Atreus dead, as they are one of the pieces that will trigger Ragnarok, which is the end of the world. Kratos must fully come to terms with his terrible past to seek redemption and to keep his son from straying down the same path he did. Kratos has to teach Atreus how to survive on his own, while Asgard wants their heads. Atreus' character arc starts in 2018, but fully develops in Ragnarok, in which he learns of his godhood and also being a half-giant. The giants were the enemies of the Aesir, which are the warlike gods in Asgard, as opposed to the Vanir, which are the more peaceful gods in Vanaheim. Odin had most of the giants eliminated, despite one of his wives being a giant, making his own son Thor a half-giant, which confirms even more that Odin is a giant asshole. Atreus was revealed to be Loki in a prophecy by the giants, so he wants to figure out his place in the world. Kratos is very protective of Atreus, and he doesn't want his only son to get involved in the business of gods. There is a lot of pushing and pulling with Kratos' parenting, to the point where Atreus betrays his father's trust to get closer to Odin, who's up to no good. This type of relationship that Kratos and Atreus has is the entire backbone of this duology. They need each other to survive in this world, as they both learn about what they have and what they accomplish. A third character that joins them on their journey is a talking head named Mimir. Mimir was once a fellow Aesir in Asgard, and then Odin grafted him to a tree. Mimir asks Kratos to chop off his head, and through some witch magic, his severed head is brought back to life. Mimir acts as an exposition machine, due to him being the smartest man in the world. There are lots of stories this guy will tell, and some advice that he gives to Kratos and Atreus throughout the games. That's about it for his character. He's just a talking head, an entertaining talking head, but that's about it. But don't get me wrong, he's still a great character to have around, so at least there's that. The witch who brought Mimir back to life is Freya, a Vanir goddess who was once forcefully married to Odin and bore a son named Baldir. Freya hates Odin with a passion, but loves Baldir, so she made him immortal due to her overprotectiveness of him. Baldur resents his mother greatly for this, and while on his journey to kill Kratos and Atreus, he gets hit with mistletoe and becomes mortal in the final battle. You think that he would let the grudge against his mother go because he can feel pain again, but he's lost his goddamn mind since then. As Baldur tries to choke Freya out, Kratos snaps his neck, ending the cycle of children killing their parents. Freya swears revenge against Kratos, but after some soul searching and life stealing during Ragnarok, Freya becomes a companion to Kratos and Atreus in their fight against Odin. This woman has gone through so much for so long that she just wants to be free of Odin's grasp. Odin has caused so much suffering for everyone that he's ever come in contact with. And I do mean everyone. This motherfucker, or giant fucker, is more evil than Zeus. And he didn't need some retcon smoke bullshit to be that way. He's been an evil asshole even before he killed Ymir, the creator of life, to claim the throne of all the 9 realms. Overthrowing Odin is Kratos and Atreus' ultimate redemption. It shows that they are the prophesied salvation for everyone in the world tree, for Kratos to finally put his horrible past behind him, and for Atreus to bring peace, not destruction, between gods, giants, and mortals alike. Now, there's a lot of story details I skimmed over, wouldn't be the first time, and characters like Brock, Sindri, Tyr, Thor, and several others that I never touched on. The reason being that this video would be even longer than my previous video about God of War, even with the filler, and that you should just play the damn games yourself.
You know, Thane, maybe I will give God of War a chance. I mean, it does look pretty fun.
Alright, that's great. I'm gonna get my PS5.
Hold on. It's right here. It's on Steam. I can play it on my computer. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay, that makes sense. Hey, maybe Cole will like these games. Hey, Cole!
No! That game blows!
What's up his butt?
He doesn't like skill trees.
What a weirdo.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, I'm glad I was able to help you out, Thane.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Okay, that's enough.
If you haven't played these games yet, and you're already this far into the video, you are doing a disservice to yourself for having me spoil this much of one of the most epic gaming sagas on modern hardware. These games are the greatest father-son bonding simulators next to Shower with Your Dad simulator. Jokes aside, Kratos turned a new leaf, and everyone came to support him and his son. That's how you revive a massive franchise. You make it even bigger than it once was. I guess the real Ragnarok was the friends we made along the way.
Through all things, housed in our silence.